let's just isolate one image here. Like, for example, this opening splash page.
Yes.
Okay, of Gorgon is absolutely beautiful.
Yep.
I see a lot of Jeff Smith in this image, and just take a look at, first of all, the position of the character, the way that his arms hang, the thickness of the lines here that show how powerful he is, right?
Yeah.
The heavy shadows on the fingers, again, define how powerful he is. And even the way that this cave here sort of frames him.
Yep, it's beautiful.
It is.
You talk about composition, and I'm thinking back, I'm going to jump out of comics for a second. And I'm a big fan of Frank Frazetta and Frank Frazetta's fantasy art. So
Sure.
I look at a composition like that, and you've got this kind of this classic triangular framing device.
Sure.
Probably lost on, you know, it's something that not a lot of folks would notice or perhaps pick up, but it creates a really solid base for that character. So you're talking about the strength of this character, and now we're seeing this character framed in that kind of, I'm not going to say in prison, but he's definitely almost cloaked by this very large grounding form. You know, I love that. And then you look at, in getting to know the work of Kirby here and being introduced to Kirby, having heard so much about him, and I probably should know a lot more than I do. What jumps out to me as well is he's saying a lot with very little. So I love your comments about the thickness of the lines. And I think another thing that you know, if you're not really an aficionado of these things, there's a purpose, but every mark has a purpose. The weights of those lines have a purpose, and I think we're seeing somebody really running at the top of their game here. It's exciting, and we're going back, what, 40 years here?
It's 50,
plus,
yeah,
50 years. It's great work, you know.
You're right. Again, it's not necessarily anatomically correct muscle, it's just the suggestion of mass and muscle and whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Okay, so now, one of the great things about FF and what I think makes it one of the better comic books, especially the 60s, is the science fiction element.
Yep.
And in this page here, we have the Fantastic Four riding an airjet cycle through the air. Now, again, beyond just how cool this device is and how impractical it probably is, which is kind of adds to it, let's just talk about this shot. I mean, I'm looking at it, and there's so many different ways that you can frame something and shoot something. So they're flying over you. You know, the thing is sitting in this rickety little device, and Sue Storm is kind of framed between them. I mean, I'm no expert, but I see a great shot here. What do you think?
Well, yeah, it's a terrific panel, and so we're seeing this dominant angle, big splash page. These aren't easy things to draw. All of these ellipses and perspective. This is tough stuff, right? So again, we're seeing an artist, as I mentioned earlier. I just feel like this is somebody really at the top of their game, at the apex of what they're doing here.
I think it's been said that the Inhumans Saga is Kirby at his peak.
Okay.
Like he was. This is absolutely him at his best. And let's also not forget the great inks of Joe Sinnott, who smoothed it a little bit, gave it that little bit of extra texture, and you know, probably spotted the blacks. You know, but yeah, he's another great artist in his own right.
Yep.
Now we're jumping to page 6 of the third story. In this panel, we start off with this great shot of them walking down this hallway, led by the Seeker.
Yep.
And he's got his minions kind of behind him. He's walking with this incredible headgear, right?
Yeah.
And you obviously you can see he's like royalty, right?
Sure.
He's leading them.
Sure.
You've got this mini in the back who's in shadow. They go into this room, and this is an incredible shot of this giant character named Dragon Man who's sitting in this bed. This is the key thing about Silver Age art that I think John Romita Sr. was also really good at, and that's filling the panel with characters that are doing their own thing. And it's almost like every little character's got their own story.
Sure.
Like you can see this guy, he's holding this gun, maybe he's sort of on guard. This guy is like, I don't know if he was a nurse or whatever, he's holding this doohickey here, and then there's this guy on the side.
Beautiful
And again,
panel.
there's no extraneous detail, it's just, everything is part of the story. You know, the picture's worth 1,000 words, but there's a million things to look at in this picture.
Absolutely, and it's not a quiet background. I think you can clutter a background, but on the other hand, if there's a panel where we just it's foreground, character, I know I lose interest.
Sure.
And again, that's something that jumps out to me when I see an artist at work. When there's that attention paid to the detail in the story, there's a deeper narrative you can glean from that. So, hey, maybe are we reading too much into the background here? I don't know, but that makes the story a little bit more interesting for me. And seeing Dragon Man here laying down with these covers wrapped around him, that's tough to draw. It's exciting to see this going by, as you mentioned. We're almost 50 years here, jumping back in time. It's an exciting panel.
So what we have here is we have Black Bolt's brother, Maximus the Magnificent, and he is talking to one of his buddies. And again, imagine being, 8 years old, 10 years old in the 60s and reading this for the first time. And Maximus says, "True, dispatch the savage alpha primitives to delay them. So you're thinking in your head, who are these alpha primitives? Well, the next page, this panel, I remember seeing as a kid and going, I cannot believe how much power is on one page. You have a platoon of these alpha primitives coming out of a wall or something, and you've got one of them who's leaping forward, ready to rip someone's head off. You got another one here in the foreground, right?
Yep.
Who's got this monstrous growl on his face. And then you have all these other ones running in the background, but yet you can see all of them perfectly.
It's terrific, it's beautiful, and we've got expression and we've got hands, and it's the eyes, the mouth, the expression, that's what's going to draw people in. And then the hands are such an important part of conveying emotion, I think almost as much as expression. So what are we seeing here at the forefront? In the foreground, this big hand looming. You can see the tension in the tendons in the hand, so there's so much aggression in this panel. It's all there to see, and then we're jumping from foreground to midground to background. Even some small characters silhouetted in the background, dropped off in the shadow. It's a quick little ink, but it's really beautiful. So in a way, this is almost a text. I think a textbook for anybody who would want to understand panel storytelling and staging a composition to avoid redundancy, and you know, sometimes that's a good thing. I just think this is terrific. Yeah, I'm glad you pulled that one out.
Yeah, that's one of the ones I noticed as a kid and it just jumped out at me.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the final one we're going to talk about today, and we have this 3-panel build-up of Maximus's face changing expression. Look, he goes from he's a little bit scared, he's a little bit confused, then you see him plotting, and now he's happy because he's come up with a little scheme.
Yeah, that false kindness, gratitude that he's going to share with his brother.
And then we climax with this incredible panel of Black Bolt putting on this crown. This is like no crown I've ever seen in my life, but it's amazing, the design.
I mentioned earlier saying a lot with very little, and then knowing when, you know, I'm going to use the term step on the gas a little bit, where we're going to crank up the detail to help sell whatever that costume might be made out of or fabricated out of.